All right, my dudes, we are back with SpriteKit. If you haven't been here before, what I'm doing is developing the game Asteroids, which is a clone of the old arcade game where there's a spaceship in the middle and you fly around destroying asteroids. And the asteroids break into smaller pieces. You get points as you keep destroying asteroids. And basically, what I'm doing this for, like the reason I'm developing this clone, is so that I can learn SpriteKit and just overall get better at coding. This is kind of a learning session. So I guess this series is about learning along with me. So far, what we've done is we've been able to put a spaceship onto the screen, like you see here in the middle. The spaceship is actually an SF symbol, which we turn white, and then we have a score counter in the top left-hand corner. The score counter and the spaceship are just, positioned with a hard code. One of the things we need to do is set up their positions relative to the screen size. That'll be another video. But where we left off yesterday was we were abstracting the functionality of generating the spaceship. So if you see here, we have scene did load. Then we have this method right here, self.addChild, and then we're passing in a function, generate spaceship. So this function is defined down here, generate spaceship. And what it does is it accepts a CG point, which corresponds to a position. And we've defined a default position of 0, 0, which corresponds to the center of the screen because the origin is at the center of the screen. After this function executes, it returns a sprite node, which then is accepted by this add child method. The add child method adds it to the scene, and it appears on the screen. The spaceship appears on the screen. So just want to review what we've learned so far in SpriteKit. The way the UI elements are set up in SpriteKit is that we have a view. I'm going to do it this way. So we have a view, which is at the very base level. That's just like UI kit. It's just a standard, basically a container that holds other things. So we have a view. Then on top of the view, we have a scene. So the view presents the scene, and then inside the scene we have nodes, and nodes are the elements that you see on the screen. So a node could be like an image, it could be even a camera, which we'll get to later. Basically everything that you see on the screen is a node. So when we say node, we're just referring to any sort of screen element. So on that note, we have actually two nodes in our app right now. So we have the spaceship, which is a node that contains an image, and then we have this node up here in the top left that contains the label with the text that you see here, which is 99990, which is the top high score possible in Asteroids. So now that we know that, we can go ahead and continue where we left off. So, like I was mentioning, we just abstracted the functionality of generating a spaceship out. The reason why we want to abstract this and make the generation of the spaceship its own separate function is that we want to be able to call the function whenever the player dies. And otherwise, we'd just be, at the very beginning, we'd be generating the spaceship when the scene loads and not have any way to recall that functionality later. So it would just be like a one-time thing if we didn't separate out the functionality. But this way, if we have a separate function, we can call that function whenever a player dies to generate a new spaceship. Uh, one other thing I was doing that we didn't complete yesterday was generating lives in the I'm calling it a life gallery, but in Asteroids you have a I don't know what else to call it besides library gallery, but you have these spare spaceships basically that you earn for getting more points. Wow, this site is not secure. Let's find one that is secure that shows the life. Where can we see some spaceships that have life? This shouldn't be so hard to find one. Let's go. Alright. So, if you can see here, this is a screenshot of the Asteroids game. Let me zoom in a little bit. Alright, so this is the game. We have our spaceship right here. We have our asteroids right here. Score right here. So far we have the spaceship. We have the score. We just need this gallery of spare lives. If you can see right here where my mouse is. All these spare tiny little spaceships. That's what we're trying to make right now. And I'm calling that the life gallery because I really don't know what it's called, but I think it made sense to me. So when I say life gallery, it's just this row of extra life. So that's what we're trying to do right now. Where we got yesterday was we determined that we need some sort of container to hold all of the lives together because they're a related piece of information. SpriteKit actually doesn't have like a collection or like a list or a table that is usable out of the box like a standard element. So we kind of had to make our own. So we asked ChatGPT how to do this, and it gave us some code about creating like our custom collection, which is we're calling a custom container node. So this is the code for the collection here. The way this works is we declare an array of sprite nodes, and when I say sprite node, that's actually just a node that we explained earlier. Do we have this function called add node? What this does is add a child. When we add a child to, when we call add child, it just adds a node to the parent. So I know we aren't accessing add child by using dot operator, but the SK node type actually defines add child. So when we call add child, we're calling the superclass's add child method. That's why we can just call this without any trouble. We can just call it, without using the dot operator. So we have this add child, and we're passing in a node, which means we're just adding this node up here, this sprite node, to the container. Then we have child nodes that append, which means we are appending the node to this array up here. And then we have arranged nodes, which is another function. So arranged node is defined down here. What it's doing is it's defining an offset, which is just basically a value by which we will offset a starting point. So we have the offset, which is an integer, and then relative to a starting point, we will go over to the right as we generate more spaceships. So we go offset. Basically, that's the way I can explain it. So when we call this, when this for loop executes, this is what we're doing. We're just adding each node, and we call this every time we arrange nodes. So this for loop executes a lot of times, or many times. Uh, every time you call add node. So whenever you add one node, this for loop is gonna execute in its entirety. So when you add one, it's gonna add all of them. When you add another one, it's gonna add all of them again. So this for loop is adding all of these nodes to this container node. That's what it's doing. So the way it's doing that is just it's using the position property of the node. So each sprite node has this position property that's defined by an x and y value that corresponds to an area on the screen. So if we have a y value that equals 0, it's going to be right in the middle of the screen. And then we have that offset value, which is incremented as we go. So the x value is going to grow and grow and grow. Therefore, putting our nodes further and further and further over to the right. So that's how that goes. So the interesting trouble that we were having is that when we call this method add node, we actually aren't getting a sprite node to appear on the screen. We aren't getting anything to appear whatsoever. So we can see that we call add node in the custom container. So add node right here. Where is it? Yeah, add node. This method, we're calling it right here. And we're calling it from inside of another function, generate life. So what generate life is doing is creating it's basically grabbing the SF symbol. The SF symbol is called paper plane, but we're using the paper plane SF symbol as our spaceship. So don't be thrown off by the word paper plane here. We're just using the symbol that looks like a paper plane, and we're just going to call it a spaceship. So what it's doing right here is it's declaring a UI image in just like UIKit. It's changing the tint color to white. Then we are taking the, I think it's called the bit data of the image. So we have the PNG data, which is the bit, I think it's called the bitmap data. Don't remember exactly what it is, but it's the data from the image. Then we're creating a new UI image from that data. So we've kind of transformed that data. We've taken the image, transformed it into data, then back into image. Then right here, we are adding a texture. And a texture is just something that a sprite node can accept in order to display an image. And that's necessary because we actually can't put a UI image from UIKit like we have here. This image from UIKit, we can't put that directly into a sprite node. It won't accept it. So we need to go to this intermediate step, which is to put the UI image into a texture, and then put that texture into the SK sprite node. So when we do this, we should have an image on the screen. So we have this sprite node, and we're setting the anchor point, which is the anchor point is just basically where the center of the sprite node is. So we're setting the center at 0.5.5 because the anchor point is from 0 to 1. So it ranges from 0 to 1, so 0.5 is going to be in the middle. Then we have the size, which we're setting at 50, so we're hard coding the 50, and I believe it's pixels, like 50 pixels. Don't really know for sure, but that's a small enough value where it's going to be visible but not in the way. So we have all these attributes that we're setting for this sprite node, which contains our image. So that's basically what this whole computed property does, this whole if-let statement. Then we have a custom container, which I mentioned we're calling in order to add the sprite node. And when we call this, it should add the node to the custom container. So that's what it should do, but we actually can't see the paper plane. So as I'm looking through this right now, I can see that we haven't actually added the container to the scene. So what we can do is we can say add child, and then we can add a custom container. So I didn't see that yesterday, so let's go ahead and call it this way. Let's run the app and see if the container shows up on the screen. So here we go. We've added we added the custom container itself to the scene. So hopefully that's going to show the container on the screen, because we already did the step where, oh, there we go. We have something on the screen. So if you see this wasn't there before in the top left. We now have a container. We now have the plane in the top left. So let's add a few more nodes. Let's call this this method a few more times. So we're gonna say for we're gonna say 4 0 and 1 through 5. We're just gonna call this 5 times to give us 5 lives, and then we'll change the size. So instead of 50, we'll make the size of the planes 20. We're just hard coding these values, which I know we're not supposed to hard code, but we're just doing that right now because we just want to get it to work, and we'll optimize later. So let's call this Can You Take Me Higher? Alright, we got an app. Attempted to add an SK node, which already has a parent. So this is the error we're getting. So it says we already have a parent. So we apparently we can't add an SK node to multiple parents. I did not know that, but that makes sense because a node should be embedded in something, and it can't be embedded in two things. So let's go back to our code. So let's take this part out. Actually, yeah, let's take this part out and then just put it here outside. So we have the container just being added one time to the scene, and then we have multiple nodes being added to the container. So that should work. There we go. We get build succeeded. Okay, attempted to add an SK node which already has a parent. So we're getting the same error here. Not sure why, because I thought we took care of it. So what does that mean? It already has a parent. So does that mean we can't call add node multiple times? We should be able to. Don't know why this would change anything, but let's just go ahead and add. Let's just call this add node method multiple times. Let's just call it multiple times, see what happens. That shouldn't change anything, but I'm just curious if there's something going on with the for loop for some reason. Yeah, so I kind of knew that wasn't the case. I don't know why that would change anything, but just thought we might give it a shot. Okay, so there's something going on where we can't add multiple nodes. So let's look at that error one more time, a little bit closer, a little bit more closely. Excuse me. All right. So we have a white box on the screen. We don't want a white box. That's what we have. Okay. So we have a white box. We're calling it once. Let's, before we call it multiple times, I'm just going to make sure the size is right. So we're setting the size of the sprite node. Set the sprite node to 20, which is making a white box. I don't know why it would make a white box. This appears not making a white box. Generate spaceship, which is our main spaceship generator that puts a spaceship in the middle of the screen. That is not a white box. So let's make this 50 again. And run the app. See if we get the paper plane again. Paper plane / spaceship. Yeah, so we have, when it's size 50, we get the paper plane and there's a white box inside. So, or conversely, I think the paper plane is inside the white box. But, so we're just going to work with that size for now. And we are going to, we're just going to make another one of these calls, and then we're going to examine the error message that we were getting. We only have a few minutes left. Alright, so we have this error. So let's copy and paste this error into ChatGPT. ChatGPT is so handy dandy. I wish I had ChatGPT while I was in school. Alright. So let's add this here to ChatGPT. It's giving us a bunch of scenarios. Okay, so what is ChatGPT saying? It says, the error message attempted to add an SK node, which already has a parent, indicates that you're trying to add an SK node, or an SK sprite node in this case, to the scene or another node while it already has a parent. In SpriteKit, a node can have only one parent at a time. To resolve this issue, you should ensure that you remove the node from its current parent before attempting to add it elsewhere. Here's a step-by-step guide. Scenario 1. Moving a node from one parent to another. If you want to move a node from one parent to another, you should remove it from the current parent before adding it to the new one. Okay, it says if sprite node.parent does not equal nil, so meaning it already has a parent, then we call sprite node.remove from parent. I'm guessing that this is just a built-in method, remove from parent. And then we have add child. So we're adding the child after we remove it from its current parent. We don't want to do that. We want all the spaceships inside the life gallery container. So we'll ignore that one. Then we have scenario 2, avoiding duplicate node additions. If you're getting this error even though you believe you're not adding the node multiple times, double check that you're not accidentally adding the same node in multiple parts of your code or in response to multiple events. Okay, make sure you're not adding multiple nodes. So this is a little vague, but I'm guessing it's trying to communicate to only call add child once. So that's exactly our problem. We want to call it multiple times. It's telling us not to call it multiple times, but we want to call it multiple times. We just have to figure out how to call it multiple times. So we don't want to take that advice because it's basically telling us, no, don't do what you want to do. Don't do what you want to do. That's not what we want to do. We want to do what we want to do. All right, so we'll ignore that. Let's move over to scenario 3. Scenario 3, check for unexpected node additions. In some cases, if you have complex code or a node might be getting added unexpectedly, ensure that the code responsible for adding nodes is only executed when and where you intend. Okay, well, we want it to execute 5 times immediately when the app loads. I'm not saying that that's the proper way the game's played, but for testing purposes, we just want to generate 5 lives in the life gallery. Okay, scenario 4, debugging with print statements. You can use print statements to debug and trace the flow of your code. Add print statements before and after adding nodes to see where the duplicate addition might be happening. Okay, so I know how to debug. Thank you very much, ChatGPT. By carefully reviewing your code, especially the parts where the nodes are added or removed, you should be able to identify and fix the issue causing the attempt to add an SK node which already has a parent error. Okay, so that wasn't very fruitful as far as telling us what to do. This is a slight tangent, but I just realized that we want to get rid of one thing in our code, which actually might help. So I just want to remove that white square. So let's remove the white square. So this is the white square. We're just going to delete the white square. And let's run the app again. See if it quits again. Yeah, it quit again. So I know we're going further and further into this tangent, but I just want to make sure the white square is gone. Just so we can be at a point where the only thing we're worrying about is the number of spaceships instead of the freaking white square. Alright, so I'm going to comment out this second call. And then we are going to run the app again with a single call and see if the white square is gone. That way we're kind of just at a good starting point. Okay, the white square is gone. So we're no longer concerned with the white square. We are just concerned with the number of spaceships on the screen. So I know we didn't really get too far today, but I'm out of time. So I'm just going to commit. What we've accomplished today is we got a spaceship to show up in the life gallery. We've got the life gallery to show up in the top left of the screen. We got rid of that annoying white square. And we discovered what we want to do for next session. So instead of leaving it open-ended, we have a goal for the next session. So I'll likely be back tomorrow so we can continue then. But for now, I'm just going to call it there and leave it at a cliffhanger kind of, and just commit and quit. So here I am. I'm just going to commit. So it's saying add live gallery with a single spaceship to scene. That sounds right. And then we're going to commit, and we're going to push, We are pushing, man. We are pushy. All right. So let's go to my GitHub and check that I have a commit. Yes, we have a contribution on November 25th, which is today. Sounds good. So I will be continuing tomorrow, most likely. So I hope you tune in again. I've had lots of fun. Take care and happy Thanksgiving.